Hey everyone, this is Mr. Vo. I am sorry I am not here today. My daughter was sick earlier this morning. I'm trying to record these videos and she's asleep right now, but again, she vomited 2 times. It was very traumatic. We called the doctor. She seems to be okay. But hopefully today or we can go over this new unit, and it's really all about quantities and this thing called collisions, right? So I want you to think about collisions for this, at least this essential question, right? And when you have collisions, things running into each other, you have a greater likelihood of forming something new, right? So more collisions, more new things, okay? That makes sense to everyone? So this makes sense that the EQ1 talks about this thing called collision theory, okay? So most of the time when you're looking at a chemical reaction, you don't always see it with your naked eye, right? So that's what this means. Like on a macroscopic basis, right? You can't always see it, right? Can't always see a reaction taking place, right? Even though there's clues to that, right? And so you just know at the atomic level, you have atoms colliding with each other, okay? You have atoms colliding with each other. And that's the goal, all right? So there's 2 ways that you can figure out whether or not something will collide, right? You have to have enough energy for the collision to take place in the first place, right? I mean, think about like these 2 guys in playing hockey, right? If you run to each other, like walking toward each other, right, you're not going to hit each other, right? But if you run at each other, boom, something's going to happen, right? And the second thing is orientation. So if they're oriented, the atoms are oriented in opposite directions, you're not going to get a reaction, okay? So again, the goal for this is for you to increase the number of collisions, right, in order for that to take place, okay? So here is an energy diagram of what happens at the atomic level, right? So you have the reactants, right, and the products, and then you need enough energy to create something that is a transitional state. We call it the activated complex, okay? So what is an activated complex, right? What that means is that an activated complex, this is okay, we can skip to the second one, is like if you are washing clothes, right, and you got dirty clothes, right, so you put detergent, you put in the wash, right, and it's all of a sudden it's clean, it smells very nice, right? This is the clean version. Somewhere in between, there's a mixture of the detergent plus the clothes, right? So that when you have those 2 things, you have that intermediate before you have the detergent with the clothes before it becomes clean. That's what an activated complex is. It's a temporary arrangement of the atoms, a different molecule before it becomes the final molecule, okay? So in order for that to take place, you need a little bit of energy to input before it becomes something new. So we call that the activation energy. So that energy between the reactant and the product, right? It's like you're pushing something over a hump, okay? So that's the idea. It's the activation energy. It's called the minimum amount of energy needed for a reaction to form an activated complex, okay? That transition state, remember, that's the transitional state. It's not permanent, okay? All right. Another thing that you need is something called orientation, right? And orientation creates, so for example, right, if this molecule, right, prefers to react to this area on the molecule, on another molecule, the gray area, it needs to be oriented in the right direction. Otherwise, if it's pointed toward the purple, the golden or the bronze area, I don't know, it won't happen because it wants to interact on the other side, right? This is the preferred side, not facing the golden area. So you have to have the correct orientation, okay? The rate of reaction is just how fast you form the product, right? That means you can look at it in terms of how much you lose of the reactants, right? That means how much of the reactant is gone, and then how much of the product is formed, okay? The rate of reaction. So you're looking at in terms of a sense of time. You don't really know what that is always, okay? The cartoon, the Edpuzzle video over here, we'll go over this. So we'll talk about these in a second. These are factors that determine the rate of chemical reactions. And so, you know, first of all, they want to react, right? And we'll talk about temperature, concentration, and things like that. But let's go over this real quick, okay? All right. So the nature of the reactant means that how, you know, characteristics, we should say, whether or not they want to bond, right? You know, if it's ionic, is there a positive and negative, are there ions in there? All right, or is there more energy or less energy? So single bonds of an element have less energy than triple bonds to break, right? And so the nature of the reactant, that means whether or not they want to react in the first place, okay? Another thing that is going to affect the rate of reactions, remember this is all about collisions, right, is the temperature, right? And when you increase the temperature, you have more collisions, okay? When you decrease the temperature, you have fewer collisions. And so the more collisions that take place, the greater the likelihood of the reactions, right? More collisions equals more reactions, yay! All right, concentration, how much of it that you have, right? So the more reactants you have, the greater the likelihood is that you'll create more products, right? More reactants, more collisions, right? More reactants, more collisions. That's more stuff, right? More. Okay? So again, increasing the concentration of the reactants increases the rate of the reaction, okay? They will collide more frequently. The surface area. So here's a picture of a sugar cube, and here's one that is crushed, okay? So if you decrease the particle size, that means you increase the surface area, okay? So it's easier for you to dissolve a crushed sugar than it is for you to have a cube of sugar, okay? The rate of reaction increases if the surface area, that means it's smaller, right? Okay? Another one is a catalyst. So think about like having a chaperone, right? A catalyst helps the reaction take place. It's also, it creates an intermediate reaction. And so this is sort of, the catalyst helps lower the energy, okay? So here is a table. I think this is going to be very important. I'll put 3 exclamation marks out of 4. Notice in this graph, the catalyst decreases the activation energy, right? Less activation energy is needed, so that means there will be more reactions taking place, okay? Energy of the reactants and the products are going to be the same because, again, it doesn't change the outcome. It just changes how fast it takes place, okay? All right. Enzymes, if you're eating or chewing or like digesting things, right? Enzymes help that process take place faster, right? And so this is another diagram. And here is the activated complex. Notice it says complex. Pretty simple, Okay? All right. And finally, you have something called an endothermic reaction. Notice catalysts help with both, right? They just make it easier for it to take place. Okay, endothermic reactions means you end up with more energy, okay, in endothermic reaction. Okay, an example is when you try to melt an ice cube, right? It's absorbing your energy. Okay? In exothermic reaction, the energy is given off, right? So in an exothermic reaction, you lose energy and it goes to its surroundings. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Again, this is a short and sweet review, but feel free to slow down and pause the video whenever you need to. Okay?